Let's talk a little Ole Miss recruiting. We're going to focus on the quarterback board because Steve Wiltfong on 3 National Analysts dropped a new prediction. I got Billy Embody here from OM Spirit. But before we get into that prediction, Billy, there was a 5-star quarterback on campus for a multi-day visit. We're talking Ryder Lyons out of the state of California. What are you hearing on the latest intel after that trip?
A 5-star quarterback Ryder Lyons was back in Oxford for what I believe to be the first time since last summer. He made the trek out there for multiple days, got a chance to see spring practice under Lane Kiffin. And, after watching this season unfold for Jackson Dart and his rise up the quarterback board, I think you're seeing Ryder Lyons kind of see himself a little bit more as a Ole Miss quarterback and just kind of the big physical skill set that he brings to the table, kind of similar to what Jackson Dart brings as far as a little bit of a run or two, that toughness, that edge to his game. Ryder Lyons sees a lot of that. So he got to spend a lot of time with Lane Kiffin, Charlie Weiss Jr., Joe Judge, who's coaching the quarterbacks as well, and kind of can see the path to development and how that works out because, of course, he's going to take his mission trip. So he's not coming to a college campus for a minute after he graduates from high school. So that is something to keep an eye on with Ryder, of course, through his development. But he left Ole Miss feeling pretty good about where they stand. They've long been after him. They do have some ties with the LDS community there in Oxford that Jackson is also part of. So there's all those ties there. But for Ole Miss, I think you did what you wanted to, which is you teed yourself up to potentially get him on campus for an official visit. He's got some locked in. He's trying to finalize that visit schedule and really hone in on that for this summer. He visits Michigan. He visits Ohio State coming up. But I think you can see Ole Miss securely in the picture for him moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think they are in the picture. Just got to get that official visit scheduled, make sure it happens before a decision. And I think they're right there. Speaking of being right there, Steve Wiltfong says Ole Miss is the team when it comes to quarterback Landon Duckworth out of the state of Alabama. He's 6'3", 190, big-time quarterback that everybody's recruiting. Why do you think Steve's putting in a prediction for Ole Miss?
I just think Ole Miss has done the best job recruiting him. And they got him on campus in February, I guess. He would have gotten on campus the end of January, that first weekend of February, where that was his only visit that he took to kick off the year. And that really set the tone with him. He's a basketball state champion. He spent a lot of time doing that, but he also spent time in Oxford multiple times now, and that's really stuck with him. And he's been on record multiple times saying Ole Miss is the team to beat. And best with quarterback dominoes, of course, things can get interesting as these officials really ramp up, as they battle your Georgia, your South Carolina, your Florida State, some of these other programs that are in the mix for him. But Landon Duckworth, kind of similar to what Jackson Dart brings to the table from throwing the football and running it, Landon Duckworth can do that as well. He's a super athlete. I think he's really somebody that sees some of the ability to kind of do it all in this Ole Miss offense is something that really stands out to him. And I think he just likes the vibe in Oxford. It's kind of a calm college town, off the beaten path a little bit. But when you get there, they've really done a nice job of making it feel like a family at Ole Miss. As much as Lane Kiffin gets out there on social media and things like that, and there's kind of that glitz and glamour of that, and of course, the Portal King aspect, they've really prioritized recruiting high school quarterbacks and developing them. And how Austin Simmons has looked in spring ball, which is something that Landon Duckworth got an up-close look at, I think really stood out. And Ole Miss has teed themselves up very well here. They're getting the last official, and they have a lot of reasons to feel confident that they can get him across the finish line.
All right. Well, one thing we know about Lane Kiffin and quarterback recruiting is he probably has more than 2 names on the board. So who else is a priority? Who else is Lane Kiffin focused in on when it comes to the quarterback position?
Yeah, a trio of names really stand out to me at this point. I would say Gavin Sidwar, who's been on campus for spring ball, spent multiple days with the coaching staff, is a 4-star prospect who is out of Pennsylvania, but maybe stays up north, maybe Syracuse, maybe some of those other programs. But I think Ole Miss is kind of in there and still recruiting him pretty heavily as maybe a QB2 with like a Landon Duckworth. So that's something that he'd have to really kind of drill down into and see if he wanted to be a part of. And then you flip it and you go all the way out to the West Coast. Luke Fahey out of California is another standout name that they're after. Again, somebody who I think you need to see him visit and really show a little bit more interest to kind of rise up the more legitimate names. But if I'm keeping an eye on another quarterback in this class for Ole Miss, it's Reese Wise out of Austin Westlake. He's a 3-star prospect, but Austin Westlake is a quarterback factory, and so he's kind of been groomed as somebody who can wait his turn. And even if he came in with a Landon Duckworth, or even if he had to sit there and wait for a player like Austin Simmons to do his thing and then graduate, or AJ Maddox who's on campus, he'd be okay with doing that because that's kind of the culture around Austin Westlake. So Ole Miss offered earlier this year. They also have the last official visit. Funny enough, the same weekend, Landon Duckworth is set to visit Ole Miss, and I think they're in a good spot there.
All right. Well, Billy, you're the expert. How do you see this quarterback dominoes playing out for Ole Miss?
Right now, it seems like a pretty good bet to have Landon Duckworth and Reese Wise as the 2 quarterbacks in this class for Ole Miss. And, you know, there's no secret. Obviously, Landon Duckworth's gone on the record saying Ole Miss is his leader. That has held up over multiple months now. And so they've just got to, you know, keep pushing that in the right direction and get all the details figured out. And they, I would think, get him. And then Reese Wise, he's made no secret, you know, how much he's enjoyed getting to know Lane Kiffin and just what they all bring to the table. He'll be back on campus as well here soon for spring, and then we'll get back for that official. So those are, funny enough, for Ole Miss right now, the dominoes seem to be perfectly lined up, and they just have to not, you know, add any weird variables into there.
Yeah, really. So Ole Miss fans, talk to us. How are you feeling about quarterback recruiting, and who do you think ultimately ends up signing with Ole Miss? Let us know. Comment section below.